Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It's the three Amigos Friday night. Perfect start to your weekend. Good evening to Keith, to Mitch, to George, and to Steve when he gets here. He's out on a job, but he will be back in time for the Lookalikes. He's promised us, so that's good news for us all. But yeah, what a week. That was the week that was. That was the week that Newcastle got knocked out of the FA Cup, and I lost my temper on the show on more than one occasion because of that. And Newcastle United qualified for the first League Cup semi-final since 1976 and the first semi-final since 2005. So all in all, an interesting week. I'm sure you in the chat have got a lot to say and a lot to contribute. As always, the show is full of all your usual stuff, plenty to laugh at. I've got to say hello to the lads who came to see us before the Leicester game. They were disappointed that the photo wasn't on the show last time. They came to see us, and the Ben especially. And I did say that I was going to tweet it out, which I did. But here we go, lads. I promised you, your 2 minutes of fame. There you go. It was good to see you, lads. Thanks for coming down and supporting it. And we got the result we wanted. Might bump into you at Southampton or at Wembley. Who knows? But thanks very much for your support. And I'm glad you enjoyed the show and the podcast. And I did promise everyone who tuned in last night that would be announcing another event. Warren Barton is in town, albeit very briefly, in the end of January. So what we've concocted on behalf of the food bank is a meet and greet with Warren. There'll be a little Q&A, but it's not an evening with. It's not a full night. We're going to do 7:30 till about 9 o'clock at the Irish Centre. Tickets are a tenner. And Warren has agreed to forfeit his fee, and I'm not going to charge anything either. We're just going to do this for the food bank. It's an hour and a half. It's meet and greet. If you've got something to sign, if you've got anything you need to sign or whatever, then bring it along. And then what we're going to do is we're going to obviously collate whatever money we've got from that event, and we're going to stick it in the bucket on a match day, which means it doubles, of course, the amount that we'll raise that night. So all proceeds going to the food bank from this one. Big thanks to Warren Barton for agreeing to do it. That's Friday the 27th of January, 7:30 till 9. You cannot buy tickets on the door. It'll be booked in advance only. So go to nufcmatters.com tonight and book your tickets. It's only a tenner. And as I say, that proceeds all going to the food bank. We've also got this event, which we announced as well, an evening with Nobby Solano, 25th of March. Tickets are 15 quid. Get yourself along to that one as well. Nobby's back in tune, as you will have seen. NUFCmatters.com is the place to go and buy your tickets for that one. Okay, that's all the formalities out the way. Announcements. Well, of course, Newcastle's games have now been announced just before we came on air. Now being confirmed that the semi-final against Southampton first leg will take place at St Mary's, Tuesday the 24th of January, 8 p.m. kickoff. And the return game at St James's Park will be Tuesday the 31st of January, 8 o'clock kickoff. Keith, it's a semi-final, man. God, a year ago, we could have only dreamt of this, couldn't we? It's fantastic, a semi-final, and we're all really excited about it. It's the away leg first, which is what Super Mac has been going on about. You need to get that away leg first. It's in our hands really now.
It's unthinkable, and I'll just say, before I start tonight, I just want to say it's a privilege and a pleasure to share the screen with George Mitchell. Him and Neil have all me thoughts, empathy and sympathy for what they've gone through. And I've not had the chance to say that to George himself, because I obviously can't speak to him outside the show. But to be on the show with you, George, is a great privilege and a great pleasure. Yeah, I have massive respect, and for me, you're iconic, and I look up to you. And I remember the day that we went to Tottenham game off the takeover, you had us in tears just for what you said for us. So I've got to say, I'm looking forward to tonight. It's been a great week. It's had its downs. When I see people like you and Neil upset, it upsets me. And then you see what's happened with Joelinton, that's upsetting. But we've got life's a journey. It's you don't create it. You know what I mean? Newcastle's capable of getting to a final and getting beat off Notts Forest. So you've just not got to take things for granted. You've got to take everything in your stride, and you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And if someone said to me on Tuesday night is Spurs, Southampton's going to beat Man City, I think they were drunk. And I think going into Tuesday, I thought we'd batter Leicester. I thought it was going to be 3-0, but obviously take 2-0, and it sort of 59 minutes and it's still 0-0. You're excited, but I said to all the people around us, I says, we're just too much for them. And yes, Vardy had his chances, but it's about the game and the result at the end. And to be a Newcastle fan now, I just don't think it could feel any better. You know, third in the league, for however long that lasts, I think it should, you know, I think we can still do it. And to get to the semi-final of a cup where you've got the beating of the other three on the day anywhere, you've got the squad. You know, you've got to think this squad. We put our first 11 out, and then you've got Isaac and St. Maxim to add to that. It's just incredible. You know what I mean? Like yeah, we need to strengthen, but this squad we've got it's mind-tingling. It's like, what better bloke could score that goal than Dan Burn? You know, like when he came through, he reminded us of Glenn Roeder when he does. He's so tall, and he just like drifted past them players. And like that was like a Keegan goal, you know, on my 21st birthday, where we sucked the ball in the net. He was kicking towards us, and when that went in, it was just, what a feeling. And he ran over to us, and then you're just thinking, oh my God. And it was a phenomenal feeling. And then Joelinton get the second, and then Southampton going through. Like, it's pants sweat and stuff, this. It's like sitting weighing yourself thinking, where's this dream going to stop? And being a Newcastle fan that's been to Wembley on all those occasions and saying he's only scored twice and get battered, it can stop. It could stop Southampton away. We could get big 3-0. But this team, you know, I think we came to go to Southampton, beat them at their ground, and then come home and beat them again at ours, and then go to the final and play whoever's there and standing toe-to-toe with anybody. And I think that's the difference. This is a team that's got a great defence, it's got a great attitude, and I think this is our year. You know, I think we'll get Champions League, and I think we'll get some silverware. That's what I think. And people say, "No, calm yourself down." Well, no, why should I? I haven't been swinging from the rooftops for 60 years. So why shouldn't I shout and get excited and, you know, giggle and scream and sing? Tell me, ma, this is, for all the years of shit we've taken and all the terrible teams. This is watching our Ozzy Ardiles teams and watching Gordon Lee and people like that. Richard Dinnis. This is we deserve Eddie Howe, and he deserves us. And this is a united club going down to London, going on to Southampton, challenging them, bringing them home, challenging them again, and then hopefully getting through to Wembley. That's the hope. And there's nothing wrong with having hopes. Never be ashamed or never be frightened to express your dreams. You know, like that's sometimes the best part of going on holiday is the 3-month build up to going on holiday, and you go away, it's over within a crack. When you're making your plans to go to Wembley, or when you make your plans to get the Champions League, shout them, be proud of them. But this side, it's just brilliant. You know, like there's players. If ever there was a saying, the sum of the parts is greater than the numbers, it's this team. Because when they're together, they're bloody brilliant. And I was excited just to come on tonight to talk to the people who watch. I just think you must all be sitting gagging at how good this can be. So God bless you all, and God bless Newcastle and everybody that stands in black and white.
Brilliant stuff, you know, and well said. Just look, a lot of people putting stuff about Joelinton. It's predictable. I know other podcasts have gone in on it. I'm gonna relay the message that I mentioned on the Supermac show and Gibbo show last night. Really, it's not our place to comment on this. There's, you know, something gone on. Obviously, Joelinton has been arrested. He's going to go to court. And on this platform, I don't particularly want to discuss that. And the reason being that Newcastle United will deal with it in-house. Eddie Howe has mentioned that already today. And, you know, from his perspective, he's got a decision to make with regards to the team at the weekend. There's a lot can be said reading in between the lines with Eddie Howe. I've tried it because I do the press conference show every week. He's got a decision to make. He has to pick the best team, and he needs to speak to Joelinton again. He's spoken to the club. He knows what everybody thinks. He has to make the decision. He's the manager, and he will decide. What I will say is, from the press conference today, and it's public knowledge, so I don't mind sharing this, is that Joe is obviously very remorseful about what he's done. Eddie Howe said he hasn't spoken to the players about it. He hasn't made a big statement to the players. He says he'll leave it to him. It's a personal decision as to whether he does that. What I'll also say is a social media, as we all know, can be a wonderful tool, but it's also a cesspit. And there's that many people out there who think that Judge John Deed or whatever, and they're making this statement and that statement. Some of them are Newcastle fans. Some of them are Mackems in disguise. Let's not pay any attention to our neighbours down the road who thought it was perfectly acceptable to place a person who ended up being charged with a sexual offence. They thought it was perfectly okay to play him every week.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, this guy, Joelinton, has done more good than bad in Newcastle as a player and off the pitch. And that doesn't get erased by this mistake. I won't condone whatever he's found guilty of, if indeed he is found guilty. But all I want to say is let's leave it. Let's leave it tonight. We don't need it. We're not going to talk about it, and we're going to move on. It's my platform. It's my decision. And from my perspective, Joelinton will learn from this. And whatever happens, as I say, he could be found not guilty. But, let's just see what happens. Leave it to the courts. Leave it for the courts to decide. And let everybody else talk about it. We're going to talk about football, talk about other matters, and leave Eddie Howe and Newcastle United to deal with the player.
Well said.
End of story. Mitch, from your perspective, it's been, a tough week, I guess, because you're back over there, and the loss of Marjorie, your mother, has been awful, and you're away from your dad, and I know, because it's that whole situation that I went through last year is still very fresh in my mind. But from your perspective, I guess the football's a bit of solace. It's a bit of it's giving you that bit of happiness this week.
Totally. Add to that, starting a brand new job this week and dealing with all the implications that has here on visas and people freezing your bloody bank accounts and things like that. So it's all fun and games. It just life happens like that sometimes. And you're right, the football's become a fantastic solace. And that result through the week was just, it could have been so much more. We talked about this the other night, and Jody said, we could have been 3-0 up after 20 minutes quite easily. And on another night, I'm quite sure we would be. But what I liked about it particularly was they just never gave up. They never gave in. The heads never dropped. We pressed on. We kept going. And unlike other situations where we think, oh my God, that might come and bite on the backside, the feeling was it was just going to come organically. Couldn't be happier for Dan Burn. Really couldn't be. He deserves every bit of the praise he gets. Interesting for it to come in a week after where he was criticised for not getting forward enough and not supporting the forward play enough, and then he does that into the box and tucks it away with his right foot beautifully into the corner. So I think we're all growing together. We're all on this journey together. And I think we've got added distractions, which you've just covered really beautifully. There's lots of other whataboutisms we could chuck around, like our friends down the road quite applauded a player who killed somebody while he had 93 milligrams of alcohol in his bloodstream. So, there's no high horse there. There's no high moral ground. It is what it is. But I think also the club has responded beautifully and appropriately and will continue to do so. That's the right thing to do. I saw a question earlier about how do the Saudi owners feel about it. No owners want negative publicity around the club. Simple as that. So, and I think you're quite right, Steve. Let's let it be played out properly and not go too much into it. Let's stick to the football, and the football is a wonderful breath of fresh air. Where we've righted the wrongs of being knocked out of the FA Cup, got to a semi-final, got a draw that has worked out hopefully quite well in my favour. We're away on the first leg as well, and that often does give a slight advantage because you then really do know what you've got to do going into the second leg, and you're at home in that leg. It might have messed with my travel plans for the end of the month, but I don't give a monkeys about that. Work have already been prepped for that. But I think we look at it all. You can't take anything but positivity away from the football side of things. And I think there's, within everything that's going on, there's opportunity there. There might be an opportunity there for young Elliot Anderson. There might be an opportunity there for Alan St. Maximin to put back up his big words on social media with a performance. You know, there's lots of other ways. Sometimes these things turn into happy accidents for the team. I would imagine the way the dressing room is the key word that for me that Eddie Howe used to do is support. And I won't have people saying that Joelinton's made a mistake. No, he's made a choice. He's made a very bad choice. But it's now up to the club to deal with that appropriately, and I'm damn sure they will. Let's focusing on the football. You can't take anything away from the lads for the effort that they put in. It's a long time since we've had a game where all 6 of us sat on Geordie's here, Geordie's there through the week, and each of us could have had a different man of the match. And I think that tells you everything about what this team's doing at the moment. The work rate, the togetherness, the effort. You look at Bruno celebrating after the second goal. You know, absolutely getting everybody pumped up. This is somebody who knows he's part of something special. And we've got a massive opportunity going into the weekend to solidify things in the league too. The way the results have gone midweek are kind of worked in my favour a little bit. And we need to be carrying that togetherness and that positivity as forward as we can. And I'm quite sure from a football point of view, absolutely no doubt that will continue.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Lots of positive comments in the chat. And Mike Gent, our thoughts go with you. You just lost his father this week. You know, big shock for him as well this week. So, Mike, we're thinking of you, mate. You know, and you've got a nice community here, as you know, and the thoughts and wishes of NUFC matters to you and your family, mate. George, yes. What a result, mate, on Tuesday. And you know what? I went into that game. I've covered it on the show this week. I went in quite nervous for the first time this season. I mean,
you were very grumpy, Steve.
I was very grumpy. I was still grumpy at the match. You can ask me brother. He was pretty sick of us by half time when I said, "See, we're 0-0. It's not going to happen," but it did, and you know, it all turned all right in the end. And yeah, positivity, George.
Absolutely, and I mean, I'm delighted, incidentally, Steve, that you invited us on the on the Amigos. I think this is the platform that matters, and admire it greatly. So I'm delighted to be involved. Gives another opportunity to say thank you to everybody for the warm, kind messages over the last week or so, which I've enjoyed and needed. I've got to tell you. The other thing I was interested in is when he invited us to come on tonight. I thought it was because you remember that I was 30 years a magistrate and 5 years chairman of the bench.
Well, congratulations for that. I'm sure there's a lot of former convicts all tuned in to watch you.
Hey,
we'll get you on the true crime.
Steve, man, they come and say hello to him in bloody the supermarket and all sorts. It's hilarious, man.
I used to walk round. There used to be a fine fair, which is now B&M round from where we live, and I used to walk round with Marjorie and doing what weekend shopping, and every now and again it'd be somebody pass and say, "Hello there, hello there, hello there." And when I'd get home, she'd say, "Who was that? Who was that?" And I said, "Look, the operative word is customer." if I say customer, you know where I've seen them.
I locked them up.
Well, some of them had. I mean, there was a family up here had locked up everybody from the grandfather to the granddaughter. And even they used to speak to us. You know, they used to say hello. You know, anyway, that's the man.
I used to get it, Keith, man. I used to get it on away trips. People would come up to us and go, "When I were all right, we were getting in front of your dad, you know, because he's fake. He's fake."
I think it's because he's right. I think it's because he's polite. I think if a bloke does something wrong, I can imagine George saying, "You're a tosser. You're guilty. You're going to jail, but I'm sorry."
Well, yeah. So I did, in the back of my mind, think that, Steve's asked me on because of my magistrate experience to talk about Joelinton's problem. And I'm glad you didn't, because I would have said exactly what you said yourself. He hasn't been tried yet. He hasn't been found guilty yet. When he is, that's the time to talk about it. However, I'll go on to say Joelinton's biggest problem isn't the magistrates. It's his own dressing room. Can you imagine what Lascelles, Trippier, Dan Burn, Bruno, little Matt Ritchie, what all of them are going to be saying on the training ground about what if he's done all that people are saying he's done? They'll tell him every 5 minutes what a plonker he's been, and that'll cure Joelinton's problem. It'll not be what the magistrates do or what you do or the club do. His mates will put that right, because that dressing room's together and they'll not want a problem in the dressing room. So that's the Joelinton bit. So he's got to face what's coming, and if there's an old saying, if you do the crime, you get the time, and so that's it. The euphoria after the other night, Tuesday night, was palpable. It was fantastic, and me included. I mean, I
George, sorry, have you seen that post from Joelinton?
I cannot read it.
He says, if I see you and say hello, George, it's from watching on YouTube. I'm not or ever will be a customer.
I'm sorry. If people see us with this in my hand, this magnifier in my hand, it's because I cannot read at the minute because I've got no eyes. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and Neil talks about going away, and I think I've recalled you away trips that we've gone on, and somebody in the group's done something ridiculous, and more than once I had visions of being up before, well, particularly in Liverpool and in Everton. Being up before the Liverpool bench on a Monday morning saying, this bloke's the chairman of North Tyneside and we found him at the football match, No. Go back to the euphoria. You know how upset I was, Steve, like you, about the Saturday event. And my worry was winning becomes a habit, but so does losing. And if you lose badly, you've got to shake that off quickly. Well, they did, and I've had me say about what I think should have happened, but they did shake it off with style. But like you, sitting here was sort of half watching because of my eyes and mostly listening. I too, by the time we got to the second half, thought, well, is it going to happen? Because the goalkeeper's starting to play out of his skin as well, and. But lo and behold, it happened, and it couldn't happen to a nicer lad than Dan Burn. That's great. I mean, I saw somebody asking was it on Twitter or something, on the odd bits I could read the other night, somebody saying, are this back five the best we've ever had? And after 70 odd years of supporting Newcastle United, yes. Simple. Wow. With Botman in the middle, playing like a Rolls Royce. Where we've got that guy from? Whoever bought him needs a reward, because that young man's going to be our pinnacle, our central defender for the next 10, 12 years, if we can keep him. And why shouldn't we keep him? And that would be fun. What a pinnacle to build around. The goalkeeper, who we got for really next to nothing, is turning out to be a world beater. I mean, this weird Villa fan that keeps telling the world about how we spent all this money. We spent less on our back five than they did on one defender. I mean, how dare they, So yes, the euphoria, fantastic. I mean, it does bring for me back lots of memories from almost from childhood, because I wasn't very old in the early 50s when they start winning cups and that sort of thing, and it is it takes me it's been a long time coming, and now that it's here, we've gone through all sorts of revolutions and disillusions and all the rest of it, but the 14 years of Ashley, we still get 50,000 coming into that crowd. bears testament to the real support and genuine support of Newcastle fans. A lot of clubs would have had empty stadiums by now, but they've done what people ask, like people on this platform ask: support the team, not the regime. And now they're getting their rewards, and I think that's absolutely great for everybody. Looking forward to what's ahead, and a possible Wembley appearance would be absolutely fantastic. However, I'm a greedy little duck. I want to see a place in Europe as well. But that we sit with the knowledge, I hope, that we've got a team capable of that. How many years is it since we've been able to say that? I mean, all we've been fed for the last 14 years is a team capable of staying in the Premiership and like it or lump it. And at least we had one manager, one of my favourite managers, Rafa Benitez, was always honest about it. My job's to keep winning the Premiership, and he didn't hide it. Now the supporters accepted that. What they won't accept was what some of the idiots before said. Yes, we're serious about the cups, and then we'll put a weak team out and get kicked out. And that's what upset me about Eddie Howe as well. He fell into that category for me. For Sheffield Wednesday. Yes, we're serious about the cup. Yes, we're serious about the trophy. And then he fielded that team. It could have been so much easier. He didn't have to do that to protect these star players. I mean, you could see.
It was even the line about in the press conference about not wanting to affect, the run and all that.
Yes, absolutely.
That was what annoyed me, I guess, more.
And he gave Sheffield Wednesday the chance to do exactly that, and they did. And good luck to them. But you could see when Bruno came on, they couldn't handle him. He was only on a short while and was scored. If he'd been on a bit longer, who knows what would have happened. So, yeah, we've got over that, and thank goodness that they've given with that option. But the euphoria is... enjoy it, everybody, because I certainly know. I saw my first game in 1945. 1945. And the biggest memory the family have is that I was told by me two uncles, who were a pair of scallywags, that you have to cheer the goals, mind. Well, we beat Barnsley 4-2 in the first leg of the third round of the FA Cup. And I cheered all the goals, including Barnsley's. They couldn't sit us down, apparently. But imagine what I've seen over that period of time. And for a short period in the 50s and early 60s, I actually was involved in the club a little bit. So for me, it's seventh heaven. Can't describe it in any other way. And to be able to sit here and talk to you lads who I admire so much and to the fans out there that about it is great, wonderful. So yes, wonderful, Steve. I'm delighted to be able to talk about it.
Geordie Toomberlife says, you might not be able to see very well, George, but my God, you speak some sense and you make Ben Jacobs' answers seem like a millisecond. I think he says you should try doing a show with him. Only joking, George. You know I enjoy it.
I know that.
And Marjorie said I was the best.
Michael West, she did, yes.
She did like that.
Michael West says, if I ever see you out in a boot, George, I'll just say afternoon, my lord. As always, we have plenty of content and plenty of sections to get through on this show. And I'm going to start off, as I always do now, with Tweet of the Week. A variety this week. Margaret says, had to leave St. James's Park after only 10 minutes. A young man sat next to my elderly father was constantly whipping him in the face with a scarf and lots of bad language and shouting, I won't be back. We'll have a look at who it is. It's Big Frank Chipper. He caught a lot of people out with that one. That was hilarious.
That was cracking. That was
Frank, honestly. I mean, if he's not making accounts with other clubs and winding people up, he's making false. It's brilliant. It really is, and he got a load of people with that. Miggy Hughes on his right. Eddie Howe really is the goat. Said Luke, which I got that as well. Never trust VAR at Anfield. A new flag up there. Yeah, we can all agree with that one, by the way. Thanks to Zora for a lot of these tweets. Bobby Norris says, whilst the UK are waking up and Newcastle is still glowing from a performance, spare a thought for us Aussies up early and hours of the morning and haven't been able to get any work done at all today, which, we forget these people, Geordies around the world, do have to get up at bizarre times to watch these games. But I bet you it's all the sweeter when you get a result like you did the other night. Bruce Vos, on Saturday night, I had a lot of messages from my Sunderland friends. I hadn't heard from them in a while. Last night, I didn't get one message. That was on Tuesday. I was surprised, Bruce. And this one. With PIF's reported interest in the WWE, all I can say is that I'm looking forward to the crossover and hearing NUFC's Big Dan Burn calling the big show a little dafty.
Yeah.
This was, again, one from Zara. In case you wondered, chocolate fingers float in the bath. Not that I've ever tried that, got to be honest.
I haven't, but you know.
It's worth knowing in the future. Billy Ambleton said a football-mad Geordie brickmaker left his mark in the wet clay of this brick before it was fired and then built into the wall of a Seton Delaval flat in 1905. Newcastle beat Everton 1-0 on the 16th of January, 1904. Posted in my local history group by G. Luther. There, you can just see it in the middle there. Newcastle won.
Brilliant.
That is good, isn't it? Yeah, and it was nice that it was Everton as well. Yeah, I am Albright. David Beckham's second son arrived at training for Brentford. He asked the coach, what number shirt am I? The coach said, wherefore art thou, Romeo?
Oh, right.
God. That's a winner,
that. Harry Maguire ran onto the pitch there in the exact way I do when I'm crossing the road for a bottle of pop and a bag of ice, and I realise I need to break into a run for an oncoming car. You had to see him do it, but it was a very good description. I did see that. Daryl Brown to Peter Crouch. Do you think you could beat Dan Burn in a dance-off? We'll be asking Keith to do that later. In between the candlesticks, obviously for good feng shui. Jordan Cronin, Steve Bruce says he put forward Eddie Howe as a candidate to replace him as head coach. I told them, the owners, I thought he was a very good young manager, and I'm pleased to say that he got the job, and I'm delighted they're doing so well. We can discuss that afterwards, but that is hilarious, by the way. Billie Eilish says, watching porn from the age of 11 destroyed my brain. A message from a depressed Everton fan. Been watching Everton getting screwed since I was 5. My head's chocker. This was a little thread as well. Bob Helpful, the Mackhams are probably worried we might take the Trafalgar Square trophy off them. Zara put knee pissing in the fountain, mind. Bob Helpful said, fat birds pissing in a fountain, champions, you'll never sing that. And this is from Jimmy. Sometimes when you cry, nobody sees your tears. Sometimes when you're hurt, nobody sees your pain. Sometimes when you're sad, nobody sees your sorrow. But fart just one time. Cheers, Jimmy. Always lowers the tone, Jimmy. Claire Cheeseman, when your dad told you that you wouldn't amount to anything and you prove him wrong. This last one, Best Anal Sex Award. Jill Towers, our favourite there, said, I bet that award made a whole week.
Oh dear.
Jill literally looks for things, I'm sure. This is a great picture, and even George wasn't around for when this was taken. St James's Park, 1901, Newcastle 1, Liverpool 0, showing the Victorian grandstand, which was forgotten about until recently. Attendance, 18,000. Great photo, that. I know you won't be able to see it, George, but that's fantastic, isn't it, lads?
Man,
looks brilliant. Looks brilliant. It's amazing, that. But yeah, I thought I'd share that one with you. I love getting things like that. Bugger Lugs, who's a follower on Twitter, he got the terrace bar to himself for Tuesday. It was a Tuesday night's game, but thanks for sending that in, mate. Good to feature. I see you got your Shearer testimonial shirt on there. Absolutely gutted after Newcastle went out of the FA Cup, said Mark. But on a positive note, I managed to win the online Spot the Ball competition where you had to guess where Chris.
Oh, God.
Clearly wasn't the Virgin Rockets taking it up there. The goal celebration and the dance all in one go. Get in, Big Dan Burn. That's brilliant. Thanks, Michael. There's a few people sending us that this week. This one, my wife won't talk to me. Not sure why. She just asked me what the female equivalent of the man cave is. And I told her it's called the kitchen, said Rocky Toon.
Wow.
Went down like a lead balloon, that one. Stephen
Absolutely.
Kennedy.
I bet it did with his wife as well.
Stephen Kennedy on Facebook says, how Steve Wraith gave up his day job to become an actor and anchorman and cult leader that he is today. We thank the Lord. You can just see the sign writer putting Psycho the rapist on the door when the doctor's behind him saying, psychotherapists, one word, damn it, one word. And this one from Chris Warburton. He says, to my 11-year-old, do you hear kids in your school talking about someone called Andrew Tate? No. Okay, let me know if you do. The only person to talk about a lot is Jeffrey Dahmer. Chris Black, thanks for this. He says, if Chris Wood shot Tupac, he'd be 58 today.
That's quality, that.
That was going around a lot as well. And this one from Kenny Ranson sent us this as well late on. Let's all laugh at the story. They had one job to do. The badge is bloody upside down on the shirt.
Just mad in it. Absolutely.
Unbelievable, that.
There's a whole string of them from Villa, from Wolves, from the England cricket, where from, I think, a couple of teams that do kit for in Italy as well.
Crazy.
Where it's just appalling.
George, if you're ever bored at home, when your eyes are bad, maybe get yourself a custodian, sort all the stitching out. So.
You can do the sewing, couldn't get a 50-50 chance whether you'll get the badge right way around. Like, and Harry and Meghan in the press, as always, and then they bought Archie a Villa top. Oprah Winfrey not very happy at that one. This has been great. Lots of people sent us this week. Thanks, Stacey. Love this. This is brilliant. Joelinton looking over an Arsenal player. Looked very similar, of course, to Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time, knocking down
it's
Sonny
Saka. That's Saka. Yeah.
Saka. Yeah. 50 Shades of Greg's there from Ian Edgar. Thanks, Ian. Your eyes on that bad, George.
Well, the size of it would be difficult to miss. It would be difficult to miss, wouldn't it?
How would George? Somebody's sister, that George.
And mother, probably. And
sister.
Jimmy Moore, thanks for this. Siri kept calling me Shirley this morning. I was getting really annoyed, but I realised I'd left my phone in airplane mode.
Oh God!
Brilliant, Jimmy. I did like that one as well. And this one, the queue for Harry's book signing, waiting patiently from Rusty Furman, ex-SAS. And this one, whenever I'm in trouble, I think, what would Jesus do? Then I pretend to be dead and disappear for 3 days.
Ouch.
Last couple, pretty sure it was Bruce who brokered the deal with PIF as well. And it's a little known fact that he was integral in the signing of Shearer. That's exactly how I felt when I heard that.
Steve Bruce's revisionist history.
It is, yeah, definitely.
So the club go and ask Steve Bruce is getting sacked. Who should we recruit next?
Well, I'll give you an exclusive. I mean, when I went to see Mia Dad the day after the takeover, as you all know, I just hid away after the takeover, and I went to see Mia Dad at the hotel afterwards. And Mia Dad, on that day, said to me, "We're considering Steve Bruce as manager," and it's that from my perspective, we're considering Eddie Howe as manager, and that was the day after the takeover.
That's not true. No, Steve Bruce told him to get him.
So from my point of view, I will always think that he was their number one choice. I don't know that, but Mia Dad mentioned him to me that day, the day after the takeover, less than 12 hours since the pen was put to paper. So I think that kiboshes Bruce's story 100%. Tweet of the week is Jimmy Bridgewood's poem again. He sent another one over to us. Thanks, Jimmy. A changing. They're all lining up to take a pop as their jitters turn to fear. There is panic brewing in the cop. It is fair to say that's clear. The Villa fans are now venting too, though I fail to see quite why. They chip in with their bitter views as their season slowly dies. But worst of all, by quite some way, the Gunners curse and cuss. They seem to moan each time we play, say that we park the bus. Not so the case, we're just well drilled now that Eddie heads our clan. They've got the way and have the will, have Fab, Bots, Trips and Dan. And War Miggy leads a merry dance as Gomares plays those tunes. The top four bubble has been lanced by the team we call the Toon. So just suck that up now, buttercups. There's a changing of the guard. You've had your turns, your time is up. We're marking all your cards. This is now our time, so Klopp and co. I hope that you'll understand that the success that you got now is now bound for Geordie land. Jimmy.
Brilliant,
mate. Tweet of the week.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Excellent.
And another poem. Keep them coming, Jimmy. I'll keep reading them out, mate. And you should knock a book up, mate, because you've got some absolutely class stuff there. Okay, that's tweet of the week. Send them to me. Send them to Zara. Send them to any of the lads, and we'll keep scouring the net, and we'll have some more next week. Yes, plenty to get through. I'll try and catch up with the chat as well. About 50 comments behind, so bear with us. The Steve Bruce thing is interesting, isn't it, Keith? I mean, he constantly comes out with stuff, and I know that he's been on a podcast and he said that he's going to retire and all of this, but he does seem to have this, mental block as to what actually happened at Newcastle, doesn't he?
The man's an idiot.
It's strange.
You can go on as much as you like, and you always meet people in life who are never to blame, and they live in a blame culture. Because when anything happens, the first thing they do is get the finger out, and they shape it around the room, and you only know they're never going to point you towards them, they point you to anybody in the room. But this fella, I looked at the league table last night. West Brom, if they win tomorrow, get into the playoffs. If they win tomorrow, they climb, I think they're 2 points behind the playoffs, and they go 3 points to go into the playoffs. Yeah. And this is a man who joined them at 5th in the league and took them to the relegation bottom 3. All in a season. This is all happening in a season, mind. This is not over 2 years or 3 years. This is in a season. Joins them at 5th, takes them to the relegation, they get rid of him, and they go back to the playoffs. The man is an incompetent dinosaur buffoon, right? And when he first come here, call us small-minded, but I'll always remember the 5-1. I'll always remember where he had a song lined up for us. And I'm sorry, I'm just sorry. I don't think there's any true, genuine Newcastle fan got a position anywhere in the world. You've seen when players play against the last team, they score, and they just don't celebrate because they've got a bit of class. But when you are, inverted commas, a Geordie, when everyone knows he's a mank, and then you come and get the job at Sunderland, you don't write a song about Newcastle to knock the people you were born with. And to me, he's a crank. And I've never liked him. I like even less the pundits who supported him and said that he's this, that, and the other. The man is dated. He's out of touch, and I'll never forgive him for what he did with the Longstaffs, where he bullied 2 kids that were trying to go to work, earn a living. Bullied them by not talking to them. And I'm telling you, one day I will talk. I went to the club during the takeover when I was doing the legal work, and I said, we were struggling, we were getting battered every week, and I said, every player at that ground, all the people saying the best man we've got in training is Sean Longstaff. Steve Bruce used to go to work and ignore him. He used to look and just turn away when he walked in because he couldn't bully him and young Matty. And that's why I'm one of these people who love to see Sean Longstaff grow and better himself. And my hopes for Sean Longstaff is if he didn't do it at Newcastle, he would become a great or a good player in the Premiership for somebody else. But God Almighty, Steve Bruce, how he can sit there and have the gall and the sheer brass neck to turn around and say, I nominated Eddie Howe. The man's delusionary. He's an idiot. Because when you sack somebody and they take you for millions, there's bitterness around. If he wants to create a conversation that never happened, to say, oh, why are you going and you get your multi-million-pound payoff, who do you think we should get next year? Because we don't really know who we want, is embarrassing. It's another case of trying to win a few Geordie hearts as you walk out the door. But for God's sake, crawl back. Just go back and enjoy your retirement. Come play golf. Go and pester somebody else. But for God's sake, stop pretending that you're black and white through and through Geordie. Who cares for these fans? Because if you did, you would have resigned when you nearly took us down.
Yeah, Mitch, it's laughable at times. It really is.
It comes across as a total fantasist. I was having a pint earlier today with Steve Bennett, And there was a guy like that in Goodfellas. And his chat was just ridiculous. It was like, well, after I invented marmalade, I went on a diplomatic mission to Nepal. And then my friend who was buying diamonds got kidnapped in Angola, and I got sent some pictures of guys with guns. And then at the time I was going out with Yasser Arafat's daughter, so I sent him a picture of 200 guns. And then my friend got, and it was just like, this is just total bullshit. And that's what Steve Bruce is like.
It's like that Chuck Norris thing that used to go around.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And the worst thing is Bruce has people in the media who will then back him up. You had Kieran Dyer on the radio this week saying, well, obviously the first person to play Joelinton in midfield was Steve Bruce. Was it bollocks?
Mark Ritchie, see that comment there, Mitch, from Mark Ritchie? That's typical Bruce. He even tried to spin a positive from being called a dinosaur. He said, well, they did rule the world for 1,000,000 years.
Yeah. I mean, you can't knock anybody who lives in that little fantasy world. When he lives in that little bubble that just says, I can just say what I like as I go. It beggars belief, but also that there's so many people in the media that are happy to back him up. There was almost like a wailing in national teeth from some individuals in the media when it was suggested that Bruce wanted to retire. And they were desperate to put stories out saying, oh, he's not going to retire, he's just going to take any job offer that he gets with a bit more consideration next time. And he's got a history of it. If you look at the way he's left every club he's managed, he's done it in exactly the same way, has exactly the same fallouts with the fan base, and says exactly the things to revise the history of what happened while he was there to try and put a positive spin on what he did there. And still some people in the media lap it up like it's nectar. And it's irritating because he is the classic example of somebody who spent all his time pissing on our backs and telling me it was raining. You know, he would tell us all sorts of stuff that we could plainly see with half an eye. With my dad's eyes at the minute, you could still see what was happening on that pitch. And he was still trying to tell all of us that we were in the wrong and he was right, and everything was improving and everything was going well. He'd have done a great job as Saddam Hussein's bloody media officer. There's nothing to see here, nothing happening here. Please, everybody, go.
It's a bit like
I guess that's all. It's almost another airplane reference as well, isn't it? You know, everybody go home. There's nothing to see here. While everything's blown up in the background, you know, it's ridiculous. And that's what he's. But I still don't understand why so many people in the media lap it up and let him get away with it and don't call him out on it. Because there's so many stats that just make it easy for him to walk into any bear trap that you want to set for him. And he will, because he's not clever enough to avoid the bear traps. But yet, people are quite happy to regurgitate his diatribe verbatim and give him a platform where he can espouse about how wonderful he is, and it's everybody else that's the problem. In particular, you know, us as the fans. And it just really beggars belief. You know, he really is one of these sort of utter and total fantasists. It's almost like he lives in a different world.
Mark Bayer says that Steve Bruce reckons he advised Steve Jobs on setting up Apple.
Probably did. You know that Kofi Annan? Kofi Annan only got where he was because of Steve Bruce, I'm sure of that.
He definitely did. Yeah. George, you're right. Mark Byers has had a week and a half, and he dear me out. He must need a thumb replacement after all the tweeting he's been doing. I kept out of it. I kept out of the crossfire. George, your take on Mr. Bruce's latest outbursts this week?
Well, I was never a fan, even when he was the press world was telling me how good he was. I was never a fan. And the day he took over at our friends down the road, he died for me. His statement the day he took over saying, best facilities, best fan base. I've never wanted to be anywhere else. And this is the club that's going to go places. And I'm delighted to be here. And I've never wanted to manage any other club in the Northeast. There were his words.
It's all I need. It's all I need.
Yeah, that's all. And he died that day for me. And then when he came to us, the other thing, the first thing I looked at was the way he took over the team and what he did with the team, and proved to me he is a dinosaur in every sense of the word, because his training methods were out of the 1940s and 50s. They weren't even in the 60s or 70s. I mean, he took over a team where his previous manager, who won every cup management possible in team football in Europe and even in the world, and who had every player's abilities and training regime in fine detail written down so that they knew exactly what they were doing, what their performance levels were, and all the rest of it. And what did he do? He binned them, every single one, and then started from scratch. And what training did he do? The day he was appointed, he flew out to Hong Kong and he had them doing 3 kilometre runs and that sort of thing. And then his pre-season was down at Teesside College with the running tracks, and he had them doing a mini Olympics, which is for footballers. That's not what you want. I mean, the little centre forward we had. Come on, who is
Dwight Gale.
Dwight Gale, always troubled with tendon and muscle injuries, particularly his thighs and his calves. And the last thing somebody like that needs is 3 kilometre runs, because you actually tighten all the things that you're supposed to be slackening off. And other players that had pulls and strains on a regular basis, they need managing very carefully. At that place at Teesside, his first week was they started with a mile run for everybody and timed them all. And then the second day, they did another mile run and expected them to better their times. And by the end of the week, they'd done all those mile runs and getting times for what end? Because half of them would, well, weeks later, Gale hardly ever played a game again. And some of the others were the same. And the only one that came out of it was Kel Watts, who got great long legs and lapped it up. Well, fine, but that wasn't training for me. That was just showing how little he knew about the physiology of athletes and all the rest of it. So all of that just said to me, God, we're in for a rough ride here. And we were. I mean, it was terrible. And some of the things he used to say after matches to try and get out of a situation he'd created, it was always somebody else's fault. He never accepted the blame for it, or for anything, in fact, and just it just was hopeless. And a number of times there was rumours, and some of them more than rumours, where he actually fell out with players on the training ground and ended up having a ruck with them. That was always somebody else's fault for telling tales and all the rest of it. No, the man is a dinosaur, but I really do wonder if he should see a psychiatrist, because the lads have said it's delusional what he says most of the time. Really is sad, and the fact that he's still trying to claim himself as a loyal Geordie of the Geordie Nation and all that tribe. He'll never be that.
It's insulting, isn't it, George? It's an insult.
It is,
like
absolutely.
I've stuck the link in the chat. Actually, I've just Googled it because it's still there for you all to see. It was an interview done in 2009, 5th of June 2009, where Steve Bruce basically says that he'd never dreamed of managing Newcastle. And I mean, that was the time that I thought, well, that's it. He's not going to come to Newcastle now. But yeah, he's Manchester United through and through. And it was actually before the game on Tuesday night. Sky were showing on the Sky Premier League channel were showing the season we didn't win the league. And Steve Bruce was on that, talking about, how good Manchester United were, this, that, and the other. And he was enthusing about Manchester United. And he's clearly a fan. And I've got nothing against him for being a fan. Just own it. Own being a Manchester United fan. And again, he hasn't gone out and said, I'm a Newcastle fan. And in fact, you can go back through his interviews, and I watched them keenly when he signed as manager. Me dad and mum were Newcastle fans. That's the closest he ever came, to a connection. So, for me, the media has played its part in it as well. But it's in the past. We can park it now. I'm sure Steve Bruce will come out with some more nonsense as time goes on. But let's see what happens. A couple of comments coming in. PDK said Steve Bruce once fought a tiger and he hit it so hard he knocked the stripes off and then called it a lion. Bruce's agent from Kirk said would get Ian Huntley a job as a caretaker. Wow, that is below the belt, Kirk. I get where you're coming from, mate, and you can own that one. That has got nothing to do with our channel, but we still read it out, mate, because you had the time to comment. Ludmilla, you've been active in the chat tonight. It's a new name in the chat, so welcome.
That's Luda. Yeah.
I met with Mitch tonight, the boyfriend of Yasser Arafat's daughter, and he was waiting for 300k of diamonds from Iceland. Bizarre night.
Yeah, that's Steve's wife, Luda. Yeah.
There you go.
The stuff he was coming out with was just unbelievable. And it was like one of those sort of, have I just slipped into an alternative reality moment, you know? And this guy was proper Steve Bruce in it, like.
I'd love to see Steve Bennett's face, like. I'd love to see his face, because there's no way Steve Bennett could have looked at him and not given the impression he was full of shit. Like, Steve Bennett's too shit for that.
John from Q-Tech has nailed it here. He says Bruce got his wish. He never managed Newcastle.
No, he didn't.
That's very, very good.
Johnny J.
Go on, Johnny J. Okay. Halfway
Allen.
Through the show, 500 watching. We never take you for granted. Thanks very much. If you can all, during the ad break, do two things. First of all, hit that little thumb under the video. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on your laptop. You can do it on your iPad. Just hit the little thumb. It does do us a big favor. And those of you who haven't subscribed, I haven't checked the subscriptions of late, but I know we're nearly at 49,700, where that means we're on the countdown to 50,000. So please, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. It is free. All you need to do is hit that little subscribe button. That's it. It costs you nothing. You don't have to do anything, and that's it. Just hit the subscription button. Let's try and hit 50k before the end of January would be nice. But we are growing day to day, and it's great, and thoroughly enjoying the show. So thank you for that. Anyway, going to do the ad break. Hit the little thumb. We'll be back after this. A big thank you to all our sponsors, as always. Thanks to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, and our website skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensaries, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria, and you can find them at mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to make an order, give them a call on 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to Blowhole Breweries, you can get a selection of beers, and the cans are in the design of the old Newcastle United entertainers strips. Blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Melly's Carpets and Beds, laying our reputation, one recommendation at a time. The best quality around at the cheapest prices. Melly's Beds and Carpets.co.uk. Email sales@mellysbedsandcarpets.co.uk or give Melly a call on 01670 632 216. And thanks to United Group Travel Limited, UK Coach Holidays in Morpeth, 01670 362 460 or mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls and looking after you on your tour. Some great deals coming up there. Get yourself onto the website to check them out. Thanks also to Media Arts, who do all of our videos and help us with the technological side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, then hit the subscribe button below. Hit the thumb up, which is the like button, which does us a big favour with the algorithm. And click share. Share it to Newcastle United, Facebook groups or Twitter accounts or your own social media to help our community grow. And if you want to join the channel, hit the join button. And for as little as $1.99 a month, you can get some members-only videos and chances to win some fantastic prizes. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. Don't forget as well that we do events through NUFC Matters. And this one is the next event coming up, Friday the 24th of February, an evening with Newcastle United legend Steve Howie. Friday the 24th of February, Tyneside Irish Centre, and tickets are available at £50 from newcastlelegends.com. If you also go onto Voucher and search for the event, you can pick up a bargain on there. Don't forget, we also support the food bank on this channel. www.nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you can find the Matchday Bucket. You can make a virtual donation to the Matchday Bucket 365 days of the year to keep helping the food bank in Newcastle. Great stuff. Keep your comments coming in. Just want to talk about Chelsea, Keith. We have got a Chelsea fan in the chat. I'm not sure if he's still here. Corrado, Soprano, Star Dog, big Chelsea fan. I was asking him how long he thinks Potter's got, because to be honest, I don't think it's going to be too long, as predicted on this show by Mitch, Steve, and yourself. That was when he got the job on the day, his first day in. He'll not be there long. But yeah, I'm interested in this whole thing with Chelsea. They're spending money like it's going out of fashion. They've got to hit a brick wall at some point. I'm just scratching my head, and also I'm very wary of who actually still owns Chelsea, because Todd Bowley is the face of Chelsea. Dare we suggest that maybe the previous owner's still involved somewhere? It just seems to be a very, very dodgy situation at Chelsea, and I think they're on borrowed time the way that they're going on, Keith. And I know this is a Newcastle podcast, but this is supposedly one of our rivals who find themselves 10 points behind us at the minute.
I think the first thing you've got to say is, until the 1.5 billion that was going to go to Kiev, it was going to go to, it was nominated to go to Ukraine at the start of the war, and I think Abramovich had to get out of Chelsea because they would seize the assets and they would stop the club trading, and then he made that gesture that he wasn't getting certain monies, but it was clear there's 1.5 billion supposed to be going to the victims of the Ukraine-Russian war. When you talk about victims, I mean, I'm not into politics, I'm not into anything. When you talk about victims, the victims can only be the team that was attacked. The only people that can be victims in that war, yes, there'll be victims on both sides, but if Russia went back to Russia, the war would stop. So for me, that money had to go to Ukraine. And if it had gone to Ukraine, it would have been acknowledged and accepted and publicised. So I think it's fair to assume, anybody with a reasonable level of confidence, that 1.5 billion is still not made to Ukraine. Otherwise, it would have been publicly quoted and accepted. And for that reason, there will always be doubt in quite normal people's minds that Abramovich still has some kind of financial link with Chelsea Football Club. But there's a story up this week, and I'm not going to go into too much depth. I'm just going to tell you this. I was told 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, that we would get João Felix. And I remember talking to John Allen, and John got the story of 3 different sources in 24 hours, and that was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I don't think that was a big secret. Newcastle were in for him. But if I tell you what Newcastle thought they were going to get João Felix for, and I tell you what Chelsea paid, it'll let you know why they're in trouble. Newcastle were given 3.5 million loan fee. That was the fee they were paying. Chelsea paid 9.5 million. Newcastle were going to pay 50% of João Felix's wages. Chelsea paid 100%. Newcastle had an option to purchase. Chelsea haven't. The deal is nonsensical. Christ, when the lad played the other night, he looked like a world beater. He looked like the lad that Newcastle scouts had done the homework on. And by people who I do trust, we were dead keen to sign him. And I think he would have been a great addition to our club. And I think the tackle was just a forwards tackle. He went high on the lad and it was a straight red. But when you play 300% of the next bidder on a bid, and then you pay 200% of the monies in wages, it's reaping a panic. And then when you go to Fulham midweek and you can't beat Fulham and you're 10th in the league, you won't get out of this just with money. There's something that Newcastle's dialed in on called culture and team spirit and camaraderie, and it's the things that George Mitchell spoke about earlier about the strength of the dressing room. That counts for so much. So when you watch Newcastle play, the reason we're so good is because we're so committed. People talk about Tielemans and some say, could he, cracking player, yeah, he'd enhance any team, but could he play the kind of intensity, could he do the kind of running and pressing that Newcastle used to? I guess the kind of pressing that Maxi struggled with, where you start and you just run your nads off for 90 minutes. Because it only takes one person to toss it off in a team of 10, and then you don't have that pressing team in unity. You've got to do it. Chelsea just seem to be going out. And what concerns me is, if you go on some of the Chelsea sites now, they're slaughtering young Gallagher. Well, I think if Eddie Howard Gallagher, for example, which is someone Newcastle looked at, I think you'd make a player of him. And I think Gallagher would fit that kind of team, that kind of culture where he'd work and work and work. But the fans are turning on him. And what happens is, when you're 10th in the league and you think you have a divine right to be top 4, you tend to look for someone to criticise. And what Chelsea are doing is, they're smashing good players. Zakira is a world beater. He's a player I'd loved at Newcastle. He went into Chelsea. They didn't play for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And they've got too many players. They've got Hudson-Odoi on a basic salary of £150,000 a week. And that's fact. That's not bullshit. They can't get, they've got him abroad at the minute with heavily subsidised wages, but they can't get him off the payroll. And what Chelsea are doing, they're going in a casino and they're putting all the money on one ball. There's 36 numbers on that roulette. And they put it on a player. And don't get us wrong, João Felix is the kind of player to do that. He's world class. But if you're going to buy world class players, buy them at the right price. Don't go in and do it. So for me, I think it's wise, Steve, that you've decided to touch it on the club, because we're football fans and we don't want to see football erupt, and we don't want to see money go out of the game that should stay in the game. But when you're paying 3 times more for a bloke to come in, look at the players. Look at Pulisic. You don't tell me after the World Cup that lad can't play. He's a cracking player. He'd do a job at Newcastle, but Chelsea put him in there and make them fail. And Chelsea don't fancy him. But it's like a bloke with £1 million in his pocket. He'll go in a nightclub, he'll talk to 10 women, but the one he should have married, he'll probably walk past her. You've got to respect what you're buying. You've got to look at the players out there. And for me, the problem in Chelsea is Todd Bowley. That's what I think it is. I think the problem in Chelsea is the people with the loaned money. A lot of it's not their money. And I've got to go back to Steve Wraith's first comment. I think some of it's Roman Abramovich's. And until I hear the Ukrainians say they've had $1.5 billion, then I'm going to keep on believing that. And I think the second thing is a lot of it's loaned money, which is the American money of lending and spending.
Mitch, great stuff there from Keith as always. What's your take on this?
Absolutely, let's add to it. And we should talk about this, because one of the questions I'm hearing from our fans is, well, how come Chelsea doing this? What's the FFP implications of this? Now, as far as I understand, the deal was done with a front load of income to get rid of debt, and that's why they can do it. They've got far bigger income streams than we have in general, and therefore what they were able to do was play with more money. The problem is absolutely Todd Bowley installing himself as sporting director, and he's gone full-on championship manager. And I think he stepped down as sporting director because somebody's told him, pack it in. You've just screwed one X2 transfer windows. If you look at what he's spent, and the ones that I flagged this up on Wednesday night, the last 2 deals that just rang alarm bells to me was the French lad they signed for 70 million, but they put him on a 7-year contract. Now, if he turns out to be more Henry Saviet and less Bruno Guimaraes, they've got a problem. They've got a 7-year problem, because he will sit on his wages in that contract and say, no, I'd like my wages, please, or you can pay us off. So they've then got a £70 million duck egg, potentially, if the fans turn on in particular. You then look at the João Felix deal with no option to purchase and everything that Keith described. And that tackle's just cost them £1.5 million because he isn't available for the next 3 games. And that's his wages that they're paying in full for the next 3 games. That's mental. To take that deal on without an option to purchase and allowing Atletico to extend the contract with the player. Obviously, Atletico don't like the look of him, or rather, I think Simeone doesn't like the look of him. But they know there's a real player there, and therefore they want to hang on to the value of the player, so they've extended his contract, because eventually Simeone will move on from Atletico Madrid, and then they'll have a player who's worth X amount of pounds, X amount of euros, or whatever you want, and the manager's gone, and the next manager might fancy him. So it's all stacked in favour of Atletico Madrid and nothing in favour of Chelsea. Because if he does something like he did, and he's right, it was a forwards tackle, it was stupid, it was rash, it was heat of the moment, it was somebody who wanted to make a big impression on his debut, and like what happens with young men, sometimes they just go TT, and that's exactly what he did. But he's just cost Chelsea £1.5 million, thank you very much, in one tackle. That's a nonsense deal. Those last 2 deals Bowley did are absolute nonsense deals and scream of desperation. And what's going to happen is they're going to take hold of Potter now and use him as the scapegoat. He's going to be the sacrificial lamb in all of this, which is wrong for a promising young English manager to come through and get a top job, which doesn't happen very often. Everybody cries for this to happen, and they're going to hang him out by the balls and leave him to dry. That's what they're going to do to him. And it's smacked of that from the appointment all along. Was you better get this right and hit the ground running, because if you don't, you are going to be shot. And that looks like what's probably going to happen eventually. As far as money tied in with Abramovich, I'll tell you something. You guys know I speak regularly with someone who has huge connections to the Football League, who deals with football sales very regularly, football team sales very regularly. He said, if the government was serious about sorting Chelsea out, the only way to do it properly was to immediately put them into administration and deal with it that way. Doing it any other way was a fudge, a compromise, and money would be bouncing around the Cayman Islands for the next 20 years.
Very true.
And that's exactly what seems like it's going to happen. Do the government really know where that money is? I bet they don't. And I bet they really don't know who controls that account, because they didn't know who controlled the original account that some of that money came from. And it turned out that was Roman Abramovich as well. So it's wrapped up in sort of layers. It's like unpeeling an onion, you know, you get down and there's another layer and another layer and another layer. And that's how you can obfuscate and confuse financially. If they really meant business about Chelsea, they would have put them into administration, because that actually was the correct and only way to deal with it. And I think I said that early on as well, because that's what I was being told by people at the Football League and one individual with close ties to the Premier League. And they couldn't believe that the government were happy to broker a deal. And like Keith, I'm not convinced any of that money will end up with any victims of any police action or war at all. It's all just bullshit in the front that makes the government look clever and big and strong, and it makes everything look rosy and cosy. But actually, if they really meant business, they'd just put the club in administration and dealt with it from there. Ironically, then that would have probably given Todd Bowley a better value buy. To negotiate at the amount they did with the ground they have that desperately needs renovation, and the land and the commitment they've now had to put into dealing with the ground and the land around it. And they're going to be watched very carefully by people like the Chelsea Supporters Trust and people within the fan base who have real active interest in the future of Chelsea Football Club. Let's not make any bones about it. What Abramovich did with them transformed the club and made them into something totally different. Before that, they were like us, so we were up and down between the top, the height, and the second division, and they were sort of there or thereabouts and had the odd good cup run, but you know, they weren't the juggernaut that Abramovich was able to turn them into. But he was only able to do that before the realms of FFP, when he was able to. I never used a phrase I probably shouldn't use. He was able to pump money into the club with gay abandon and not care how much he lost. And it's now a very different beast. And what Bowley's bought with other people's money, and he's now doing what many Americans in sport do, is spend other people's money frivolously. Some of these purchases are outrageous, I'm sorry. Some of them make no sense whatsoever to me. It skewed the market for everybody. And my feeling is, when you see a player being bought for 70 million, put in a 7-year contract, because suddenly he's realised, shit, I've got to think about FFP now. I'm at the end of my line of my free spends. And then making that deal for João Felix, which just is 100% in favour of Atletico Madrid, does nothing for Chelsea other than a short-term sticking plaster. These are significant moves that say, oops, I think I fucked up here. And I genuinely don't think Bowley stepped down. I think somebody's told him. Somebody within the club who actually knows what they're doing has got hold of the front man of the ownership and said, it's time to stop playing Championship Manager now, mate. Shut your PC and let the big boys get on with it. It doesn't make it fair, though, for the rest of us, and I include us in that, and I include Liverpool, Man City, Man United, because we're now, because of their spendings, dealing in a skewed market in January. January was always going to be an interesting window post-World Cup, etc., etc. But I don't think anybody expected Chelsea to be chucking 400 million around. Yet we're the ones that benefited from spending money and oil money, etc., etc. We're not even in the top 10 in Europe for spends. Getting on it. If you want to look at where the problem lies, it lies in the blue part of London. And I think it's not a case, as Colin's saying, doesn't seem to exist. I just think FFP is never going to touch them, and there's a bit of arrogance there. And you watch, I think it's going to bite them on the arse in the next 2 years very hard.
George, your take on it?
Well, my worry was that they got somebody in as sporting director who clearly knew nothing about football. I mean, some of his first pronouncements about what he wanted to see the Premier League do and all the rest of it were absolute garbage, fairy tale, straight from the American playbook, though. And that's why he's where he is, and that's quite sad. My concern is Neil saying it'll bite them in the backside and do awful things to that club. But what about the poor fans? I mean, Chelsea fans are genuine fans like we are, and that really is quite worrying for them. I mean, I'm not a Chelsea. Obviously, I'm not a Chelsea fan, but like Keith said, I'm a football fan, and I want to see other football fans enjoying their team and enjoying the sort of things that we're enjoying. It's not exclusive. In fact, it would make it even more exciting for us if there were more people in the same sort of thing. And that guy talking about different competitions and all the rest of it before he even got his seat warm seemed to me to be absolutely bizarre. The other thing is I've touched on and bothers me even greater is that the way the young players are getting in this. Young Gallagher is a talented player. He's got the sort of engine from what I've seen when he was there and when he was at Crystal Palace that would suit us fine. Yeah. But he's trying too hard. He's trying too hard. So if you look at his book, he gets booked every game. Nearly every game he plays, he gets booked. And he gets booked because he's trying too hard instead of concentrating and being the footballer that he is. And they've got another laddie on the left wing called Hill, I think is his name. He was outstanding, but again, got into trouble because he was trying too hard. And this is what happens when the young ones are trying to establish themselves when players that worth hundreds of millions are suddenly being dropped into the club over the top of them. They just go over the top. They're trying too hard. They will destroy Gallagher if they continue to play him the way they're playing at the moment. That young lad will disappear from football. Is my worry, and that would be terrible. Terrible for football. Terrible for Chelsea, but terrible for the Chelsea fans who love him and enjoy him. You know, it really is atrocious. And for me, if there's a bit of a come down for them, I hope it happens quickly because they do need the opportunity to recoup and don't forget, see what the forefront of protests against the European League. You know, they marched down Stamford Bridge and got the board of directors off the backsides out of the boardroom and said, "Hey, we want none of this." They're real fans, so they have my sympathy about what's happening at the moment. The
George,
sorry.
George,
Yeah.
no, just because you talk so much sense. You talk so much sense because you talk about Gallagher and you talk about people like Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi never give himself 150,000 a week. Chelsea did that. No. That kid's priced out of European football now. And what it is, that's mismanagement. That's like saying I don't know, Murphy, we're going to give you 200 grand a week on a 3-month contract. You never would. No one's going to take him after that, and these people won't get down off their wages. But Gallagher's a cracking footballer. But unfortunately, the Chelsea fans, he's the target person who they criticise.
Well, he is, because he's as I say, he's like everybody, every player don't care what player. They try too hard, it doesn't come off.
You're right.
They lose. The football brain disappears because of the energy, and you need to be able to put your. You hear people saying you need to be able to put your foot on the ball. That's what Gallagher needs. He needs somebody probably like Eddie Howe or somebody similar to say to him, "Hold on, yes, we want your energy, but we want it for 90 minutes. We don't want you kicking people to death in the first 20 minutes and getting a yellow card." And that's my worry about Chelsea, is it isn't just touching the Todd Bowleys and those that are in the background spending the money. It touches on the players, particularly the young players. And as I say, I'm not a Chelsea fan, but I'm a football fan. And I think what's happening there will be not very clever for Chelsea fans in the ultimate.
George, the quicker we get you in and get the eyes fixed, you see things. No, but I never thought about them trying too hard. But what you're saying is making so much sense. You transfer what you see, George, into words of wisdom.
Yeah.
Tell you what, any human, any bloke who's watching this tonight, got kids, play back what George is saying, because you can ruin good players. You can ruin kids we've got. And some people go to the game, I hear them, and they're determined to criticise a Newcastle player. You've got, George has just told you we've got the best back five we've ever had. So don't look for someone who's dropping a bollock. Just think, look, when these drop a bollock, I'll support them. But you're so right. When you talk about young Gallagher, I'm not saying I want him. I'm saying he would do well at Newcastle being coached by Howe. But I tell you something, it's going to be a big player that plays for Chelsea under Todd Bowley, who doesn't hit the ball. He doesn't hit the ground 100 miles an hour. That does well. There's going to be more players wasted.
Keith, this is something that never changed in all the years I've been involved in football. I can remember being training at St James's Park with coaches like Joe Richardson and Benny Craig, names people probably forgotten now. And I can remember them saying to kids, you stick a black and white shirt on a local schoolboy. Of course, he's going to try hard. They're going to run their bloody socks off. I know I did for a while. And then somebody like the coaches gets them alongside them and puts their arm around their shoulder and says, "Switch your brain on, man. Never mind. Just switch your brain on and think about the football that brought you here. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see you kicking the top off the grass. We want to see the football that brought you here." And so many lads I've seen, even in my time, then suddenly found their feet and not be long before they were knocking on the first team door. George Dalton, there's a name who did get the first team. When George Dalton went to Newcastle at the same time as I did, George was inclined to kick everything that run. And anybody got near George Dalton, you're going to get your ankle kicked. And suddenly, two old fullbacks, Benny Craig and Joe Richardson, who had to look after the young'uns, took up to one side and said, "Look, we want that George Dalton was seen playing there for Northumberland County. We want that George Dalton was seen there." And then when he finally did switch his football brain on, it wasn't long before he was in the first team. And that's what I see with those young lads now.
It's brilliant to sit here. And when I'm sitting with you, I feel like a young fella, even though I was young. So my first game was 1969. But to hear you say that, it makes me think, as a fan, I bet you Botman wasn't as good a footballer till he got with Eddie Howe. I bet Eddie Howe's made him an even better footballer because he didn't play him straight away and he made him work his way back in. But I get on when you talk about Gallagher, I just sit there and go, shit. Me, Mitch, and Steve watch Gallagher like everybody else has. But it's you, George, you look at him thinking, nice, trying too hard. There's not many people going to notice that, and you bang on. But does that not come when people criticise you? When our fans get on one of our players, so you hear people criticise Longstaff. Does you think that helps Longstaff? Do you think he's going to play better? Longstaff's he's like the Michael Carrick. He grafts and grafts and grafts and does all the awful jobs.
Well, you get a choice if the fans get on their back. They even try harder, which is disastrous, or they do what I think he and Matty for a little while did. They go into their shell, and the football disappears with them. There was a period of time under Bruce where I think there were times on the field where Sean Longstaff didn't know which was his right foot and his left foot.
Did Miggy not do that? Didn't Almiron?
Probably, yes, probably, exactly. He's another good example of somebody sitting down and saying, "Switch your brain on, Miggy. Why did Rafa bring you? He saw all those wonderful goals in the American Football League. Why you not doing them here? And why you're not doing this? Because you're trying too hard. So the manager just wants you to run and run and run and run. Well, fine, but switch your brain on and find your football again." And that pass he played the other night to get Joelinton's goal was sublime. I mean, you'll not see a better pass this season, in my opinion, anyway.
George, it's great. Listen,
I'm sorry to go on.
George, you know what it is? I'll dial off with you and I'll just sit and talk to you all night. I'll tell them this is don't come to bed. Because I tell you something, your wisdom surpasses your age. You're an absolute iconic genius to me. I love hearing you talk. Brilliant.
Well, it is the beautiful game, and despite how many clever people try to change it, apart from making the players fitter, it's still the same game that I played 70 years ago. So, it's no different.
I mean, Stephen Mitch, one's biased is his dad. He'd be your biggest critic, but I tell you what. When I come on and sat there tonight, I thought, well, I'm going to enjoy this. But, what you've just said there about Gallagher, and then you've transferred it to our players. And then it makes us think about Almiron. Why didn't Almiron under Bruce? He must be in the top 5 strikers in the Premier League. Why was he not under Bruce? If he was a great player, why was he not doing X, Y, and Z under Bruce? Because he's trying too hard. And trying too hard often comes from fans getting on people's backs.
Well, you just need to go back and think how long Rafa waited to get Almiron from America. Yeah, we waited a long time. So Rafa must have seen something. Yeah. And he was, I reckon he would have started to do that under Rafa, but because he had to be Bruce before that. But I mean, it's just one of those things. And I mean, as regards Neil, I have to admit that I'm not a very good supporter in terms of on the touchline. See, when Neil used to play, and I used to go and watch him. His 2 grandfathers went, and sometimes his uncle, and the other three, the uncle and the 2 grandfathers would be at the far side of the field, and I would be at the corner at the other side, standing on my own, because I couldn't keep my gob shut. I was coaching the team more than the coach was, and sometimes it was embarrassing. I remember one game Neil played in at Blythe, and the referee didn't turn up, and Neil's coach was Paddy was a qualified referee, so the Blythe team asked Paddy to referee the match. And, of course, refereeing his own team was never going to be easy. But unfortunately, I arrived at the match and I didn't know that had happened. All I seen was a referee giving Blythe all the free kicks and Blythe all of this and all the throw-ins. And I'm on the touchline saying, "What the bloody hell are you doing, man?" And it's my son's coach, and I didn't realise. And when I walked off and I walked past him, I said, I've seen some referees, but that's the biggest Homer referee that I've ever seen in my life in 70 years of football. And I walked off, and it wasn't until behind me, two of Neil's mates were coming off the pitch and said, "Do you hear what Mitch's mate said to Paddy?" And I realised, Paddy, that's our Neil's coach. So it's not always wisdom, Keith. It's sometimes shooting from the hip as well.
Guys, tell you, I just wish I could box this up. Honestly, Mr. Raythew, I tell you what a clever decision you made putting him on tonight.
It's great to get George on. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy listening to George. I mean, this is, we do joke about his shows going from the 1 hour to 1 hour 45 minutes, but it's because he's got so much to say, and and it's great, and it's fantastic. So I'm sure the viewers have enjoyed it tonight as well.
And because Newcastle was so hard up, they were entering every competition that was going.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, half an hour to go. We've got a couple of things to crack on with. So it's time for everyone who loves the music to sit back and enjoy it, and those people who cannot stand it to stick your fingers in your ears. The day I met, where I ask you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present, and thanks to Anthony Lewins for this one. The day I met says, "Don't mess with the Baldies." This is the day that they met Ando. Brilliant photo, mate. Anthony, Thank you for sending that in and sharing your photograph. If you've got one, send it to me on social media, and we'll endeavour to get it on the show. Now, I've had no word from Steve Hasty. He was supposed to be on the show tonight, so I will hang back on the Lookalikes until he gets here. Give him that opportunity just to see who has sent them in, but we might have to do it without him tonight. But in the meantime, Newcastle United have got a game coming up on Sunday, 2:00 kickoff, live on Sky. Fulham are the visitors, and it's live on Sky Sports. Team news: well, John Joe and Matt Targett both remain out. There's going to be a late decision made on whether Joelinton will feature. There is a threat of the one-match ban still hanging over Kieran Trippier and Fabian Schär in this game, but that will be lifted if they can avoid bookings against Fulham. Of course, that now extends to 10 bookings. Both of them are on 4 at this moment in time. As for the visitors, Anthony Robinson will serve a one-match suspension following his 5th booking of the season. And apart from the long-term absentees, Cabano and Duffy, the visitors have got a clean bill of health, including our former number 9, Alexander Mitrovic, who will be making his 4th appearance against Newcastle since leaving. He's yet to find the net. Let's hope he does continue that great run on Sunday. Of course, he was suspended against Chelsea last night, but he will be chomping at the bit, I guess, to play against his former team. While we were beating Leicester and getting through to the semi-finals of the Cup, they, of course, played Chelsea. 10-man Chelsea, it has to be said, discussed it earlier on the show, beating them 2-1. They've climbed into a hefty 6th place now, and they're flying high. And Marco Silva's team certainly giving us a stern test at the weekend. Pre-match this coming Sunday, Supermac will be at the Dog and Parrot at 12, and Gibbo will be with John Anderson at Pumphrey's at 12. Okay, as always, we've got Toon Stato to give us a lowdown on what we can expect at the weekend.
What a week! Lots and losses. Newcastle making it to the League Cup semi-final only for the 2nd time in their history and first since 1976. Actually, Dan Burn became the first Newcastle player in the entire history of the club to score a goal in the quarter-finals of the League Cup at St. James's Park. Before the game against Leicester, Newcastle had scored only 2 goals in quarter-finals. One back in 1975 against Notts County, which was an own goal, and the other by Modiame away at Hull back in 2017. Having said that, Newcastle makes it to the 21st semi-final in the club's history. Out of the previous 20 semi-finals, Newcastle had made it through to the final on 15 occasions, 13 times in the FA Cup, 1 time in the Cup Fairs Cup in 1969, and the League Cup in 1976. Now, moving to Fulham this Sunday, we haven't beaten the Cottagers at home the last 3 games. We drew twice and we lost the game in the Championship back in 2017. While we head into the game 13 games unbeaten at St. James's Park, our last defeat there was back in April against Liverpool, and we have not conceded at home in 7 successive games. Nick Pope, on the other hand, has not conceded in 632 minutes, both home and away from home. So let's hope the lads can continue the amazing season they're having, and let's make some further history.
Great stuff as always, and mayhem going on in the background. Is a demolition job by Mini Andre. If he turns out anything like his dad, he's going to be a big lad. But it's great to see. You know, he's managing to still do the shows. Okay, Keith, this is as Eddie Howe says, the next game is always the most important game. We don't look back and we don't look too far forward. Fulham's going to be a tough test because they're flying high.
When you said earlier, Steve, you said that. Trippier, who was the other one who was on 4 bookings?
Sure.
I mean, for me, it's a tricky one because we've got a golden chance to get to Wembley, and the reason we've got a golden chance is because, for example, Man United played Barcelona 3 days before they would play at Wembley. You know, if things go and Man United got through, out of them, let's suppose Man United's as strong as the opposition in the other half of the draw. They play Barcelona, I think, on the Thursday, and I think they play if they got to the final, they'd play in the final on the Sunday. That's a hell of a challenge, that to play at that level. You're not going to play a week inside of Barcelona, then you're going to travel from Spain. And then you look at Newcastle, and because we've been knocked out of the FA Cup for all the moans and groans, and that, I'm in the same boat as George and Steve on that. And I was gutted we got knocked out, but we out. So when we play our 2 semi-finals, we have a free week in between because the FA Cup becomes the 2 semi-finals. Yeah. So when you look at the whole thing, it's all saying, lads, you know, your team spirit, you know these photographs of your dressing room that just spells unity. You've got a great opportunity here. Then I just hear them facts that you've just said there, Steve, and I'm thinking, holy shit. If Target was fit, if he wasn't injured, I'd be putting him left back and I'd be putting Byrne at centre half and I'd be resting Shah to avoid that. So that, so you got through this 10 barrier, because that's a risk over. And Trippy is massive to us, so I'll risk Manquillo for that as well. But does he then get criticised like we criticise him at Leeds for putting a weak inside out if Fulham do us in the league? And they'll say, the league was more important, should have concentrated on the league. Play the full side. Forget about. I mean, I think Trippier's got a booking in if he plays on because I think Fulham's got good forwards. And I think they're liable to skin somebody. And I think Trippier's ultimate professionally take a booking rather than concede a goal. But I think things are changing. I think the same way as Perez come to Newcastle last week, he came back to a different Newcastle. And I think when Mitro comes back, Mitrovic would come back to a Newcastle. It's different. And I'm not fearful at all about him scoring. He's a good championship player. He got a lot of goals at championship. So did Dwight Gale. Didn't make a good Premiership player. So for me, I'm not worried about Mitrovic. He's just a striker. He's not in that top echelons of the Premier League. And I think we've got enough for them. My only fear is that we lose a Shah and or a Trippier for the semi-finals and for one of those important games. Because I think to beat Southampton away the way they played against Man City the other night, And let's get it wrong. Probably the best manager in the world, Guardiola, is criticised for doing exactly what people have criticised Eddie Howe for doing, for resting too many players for a crucial fixture. But I think to go to Southampton away and get a result, we need Trippier and Shaw. And I think to go to the home leg, we need a Trippier and a Shaw. So if I don't say Joelinton dropping out, I say Joelinton stand up like a man in front of the squad, and I say that, being managed. And I think Newcastle have handled it well, and I think they'll handle it better, and I think they'll play. But I would say I wouldn't be hugely disappointed if we could put the right players in and rest. I'd be devastated if we didn't have Trippier for them big games. Result, whoever we play, whoever gets rested, I think we'll win 2-0. Newcastle's, I think Chelsea is shit, and that's why Fulham beat them. I think Newcastle are great, and I think we'll beat them. I think we'll beat them 2-0. Might beat them by more. Newcastle are going to gub somebody one of these weeks. When we played the other night, we could have been 4-0 up early doors, and put Sean Longstaff shot. That should have been in, and we should have been attacking and scoring quick. So I just see good things. So we'll win.
Okay, 2-0. Mitch, to you, mate.
Look, I think we've got to play the best team we've got. I don't think we should be thinking about other games and consequences of bookings and things like that. Though I do think the game they'll miss will be a league game against Palace, not a cup game. But I just think we've just got to go with what we have. I personally don't think Joelinton will feature. And so there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity there. My feeling would be either for Young Anderson or for ASM to state a claim, because he's been championing it a bit, according to his own social media. So let's see what you got, kiddo. And why not have a go at these? They don't have the best back fours. They've been playing very well. They're in the league table doesn't lie about positions. It would be wrong of us to start chucking accusations of that around, sitting in third, when they're sitting, 8th at the minute? Or is it 7th? They're there on merit, on their own merit.
Might even be 6th.
6th,
yeah. So, they're there on their own merit. However, I look at their back four in particular, and I see Tim Ream at the centre of it, who was never a good centre-back in the Championship, let alone in the Premier League. And if we can't make him squeak a little bit, then we really don't deserve to be where we are. I think we've got to go with the right mental attitude. The one oddity about the whole situation with Joelinton is it might actually galvanise the dressing room a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think we'll go with the right attitude, and we'll play it the same kind of way we've been playing generally, with the Sheffield Wednesday blip aside. There's no reason why we can't come away with a relatively comfortable win. And I'm going to go for a penman. I'm going to go for a 3-1.
Go on, Stewie boy.
No dice today.
Oh, to me bag, I forgot.
No problem. That's why I've gone by the prediction. George, what about you, mate?
Well, I'll start with my prediction 3-0. And like Neil, I would play the strongest team. And as regards Mitrovic, he can be a danger in front of goal. I think he's a bigger danger of injuring other players, our players, because when he gets frustrated, he's quite often, and that's how he's getting into trouble with Rafa. Quite often he'd leave his foot in. And quite often he'd elbow somebody on the bridge of the nose and break their nose. And that's something that still puzzles me about why referees never get hold of this more irregularly, about people using their arms to climb and all that rubbish. Mitrovic is very good at it. Very good at swiping it back centre back with his elbow and doing them serious damage. So I think they're the things that I'll be watching about, not necessarily his goal scoring, but the fact that he might actually do our defenders some harm physically so that they miss games rather than getting booked. Fulham do have some dainty players, and the manager has seemed to galvanise them into some sort of unit to get where they are, and that's great. But there shouldn't be a trouble to us the way we're playing at the moment. There shouldn't be a trouble at all. And so I'm confident of a 3-0 win.
All right, I'm going to go for a tighter game. I think 2-1 was my prediction. I think Fulham will breach the Newcastle rear guard. I think they've got a few dangerous players in there. Willian never usually has the best of games against Newcastle, but he seems on fire at the minute. And Mitrovic, he's going to break that duck eventually. He's in the form of his life at the minute, and if there's a time to do it, it's now. So yeah, I think 2-1, but I think Newcastle will edge it. Roger's agreeing with us there. Garang Kuhl is on the bench for Hearts tonight, so worth maybe he's watching that. I think it's live on Sky as well. Well worth a watch. I have texted Mr. Hasty as shown here. Are you driving slowly? Your fans await. And I found a lookalike emoji on there, but I've not had a reply from Steve. So it's with a heavy heart that I have to do two lookalike even without Steve Hasty. And there was a notice outside Steve's house this week. I don't know whether anyone saw it. You'd be better off sandpapering a lion's ass in a pair of pork chop panties than being caught on the other side of this fence. That was sent to us on Facebook. Meanwhile, a new notice has appeared on the gate to Mr. Hasty's property. He must still be angry at the doggy lookalikes. He'd be absolutely foaming after today. Stephen Kennedy says, Helen, I think the dog wants to go out. He says, there's Steve Hasty wanting to go out for a walk. In the bottom left-hand corner. John Allen, who calls himself a friend of Steve Hasty. If I stay really still, I could make it look like this.
The bottom corner on the right.
How do the RSPs let owners get away with chopping their dogs like that?
Steve Hasty celebrating a third-round FA Cup win at Hillsborough.
That's a ringer, that is. That's a ringer.
Spitting dabs, actually. Like the good thing is we can actually say it's a ringer when he's not here. Albert's back. And that's a brilliant likeness. As is this one. Steve in his feminine days. And this one. Steve only had a bit of weight on.
What are people doing with the dogs?
And this one, War Hasty. Hasty the cat. Which I thought was a bit different. You know, it's nice to mix it up with a cat every now and then. Anybody wants to do that. Thanks for this one, Wayne. Our friend Steve Hasty, not Pat Coombs at all. Brilliant Pat Coombs. This one, back to dogs. I'm saying now, as Albert, you don't have to. You speak 1,000 words with pictures, mate. This one as well from Wayne Bennett. Steve Hasty with bed hair. Coronation Street reference here. Remove the makeup and you know it's Steve Hasty. You never see them in Street Cleaver picture together, do you?
Oh, yeah.
It's very true, you don't. This one as well. Roadworks currently affecting Steve Hasty's cafe. Can we raise some for Steve sandwiches? It does look like Steve, doesn't it? Just peeping his head out there of the cafe there. And this one, Steve Hasty in today's paper advertising smart meters. Possibly why he's not on the show tonight. And this one from Jacob. Photos emerging this morning of Steve Hasty on New Year's Eve. Happy New Year, Steve Hasty. This one as well from Albert. Wurzel Hasty. Fits that hat well, doesn't it? And this one, I don't normally post Steve Hasty lookalikes, but this. Thanks, Ugly Camel. I'm sure you have, by the way. I'm sure you have. And Steve Hasty looking very physical there. And lastly, this one from Tom McPhail. Mr. Hasty was in bed. He certainly was. Those of you who tuned in last week will remember the Keith Patterson one. We've got a follow-up from Brian. Great to meet you, lads. And here's Keith. Now into some sensible ones. Romeo Beckham and Bruno. Very good. Like it. Very good. He's a bit thinner. This was a good one from Darren Morgan, Basil Fulton, and Roy Keane. For those of you easily offended, look away now. Bucks Fizz and Bucks Fizz.
Oh man!
Very clever. If you watch Paradise, you'll get that. Tom Dixon, Boris Becker, and Vincent van Gogh. Definitely. I can see that one. Very good. Daniel Farke and Roger Federer. I've often wondered who he looks like, and that's probably that's a good one.
It's as close as you get.
Giorgio Samaras and Freddie Mercury. Had to look twice.
Why? That's a good one. That one.
Had to look twice. Brilliant. Steve Wraith from Hilton. Wow. I can't believe you've done that to your child. But thanks for that. Julian Lescott and Star Trek Star Wars. Similar face. Two lookalike, Chris Wood now and Chris Wood in 40 years' time.
Oh my God.
I don't think we'll ever see a good game to Chris Wood, could we? Certainly not the last few weeks. This one, Steve Bruce really isn't enjoying his new job at Hermes.
Oh my God.
And this one, Yabba Dabba Hairdo. Keith's made the front page of today's Daily Cavemen Bald Cure. And there's Keith in the top left. That looks like Andrea next to him. This one is Aguero got on the Chelsea bench. Thiago Silva and Aguero. Very good. Yeah, a little look of him. He's got a look of the young Ian Bogie, Andrew, as well. I thought that was this is good as well. Lookalike. Anybody who was on Trippier's agent's page, he did this baby thing. It does look like Trippier, obviously, because it is him going back in time. Thanks, Albert. Guess who? Wow. It's obviously my face superimposed on a body, which clearly isn't mine. This one from Alan Partridge is quote of the day. This is a new account I'm following. How it starts and how it ends. Very good. That I love this guy, by the way. If you're not following A Partridge, QOTD, then please follow it, because if you need a laugh, which I've needed a laugh in the last couple of weeks, follow it. It's brilliant.
Two tipster.
Yeah, definitely. Lookalike Richie Costa from Tulsa King and me. Thank you, Jimmy. Got it on this week. And 100% Mags, Groot and Big Dan Byrne. Yes, very good. Yeah, Dan Byrne's dancing, certainly the talk of the tune. Good to see Pep putting in the hard yards, doing the lines. Very good. Did look a little bit like him under that hood. And this one from Rita. Lookalikes for this week. Josh Windass and Burt Lancaster. And this one's from Vince. The Cookie Monster, and this was something that was a geologist found a rare formation inside a rock that looks exactly like the Cookie Monster on Sesame Street. Thank you, Vince, for that one, mate. And this one into the final few. Miss Mozza, lookalike, one of the Smith brothers, and Stephen Gerrard. I've often thought that it could be separated at birth, them two. Last three. This is your top three. We've got this one. Oh, look at him. He's just turned up. Lucy Manning, BBC News reporter, and the child catcher look-alike. Right?
Perfect timing. Wait
a minute, we're in the top two, Steve.
I hope the dogs is there.
Lookalike for Friday, Socrates and Big Joe from Alan McKenzie. This was brilliant, by the way.
Show him Johnny Allen's dogs, though, before you go off.
It's gone, mate. It's off the system. But the winner this week, without question, because I anticipated Steve being late, I did keep one back, Steve. And this is the winner by far. Steve Hurstey.
I'm going to boom, son.
Hey. I hope the RSPCA don't watch this program.
My God!
I mean, I can't see it. It looks bloody awful.
George,
you're missing out, George. You're missing out.
Thanks, Steve.
Classic. Steve,
guys.
Go on.
I've listened to the show all the way down. Been a great show, by the way. Some great stuff. But I purposely waited until the very end. I thought I'll get these bloody photos out of the way, and then I'll just nip in and nab you. And you bloody did it, didn't you?
One step ahead, Steve. One step ahead, mate.
Typical.
when
I
you
keep
get home
I
tonight,
keep
son,
abreast of your activity, Steve. Put it that way.
when you get home tonight, just do us a favour, mate. Go to the start of the show that Steve puts on the Lookalikes, right? And have a look what your mate, Johnny Allen's put on for you.
Yeah.
I've got to say, son,
I can imagine.
it's good. It'd be good ideas for when you go to hairdressers.
It would be, aye. Steve,
I'm going to have
you're
words. I'm going to have words.
You're in the vehicle, so give us your prediction, mate, because I've still got a couple of little bits to do. Give us your prediction for
Yep,
for
sure,
Sunday.
yeah. I mean, it's an interesting conundrum, I think, that we've got, isn't it? Because I'm listening to what you're saying about whether you rest somebody or you don't rest them. Horses for courses. If you rest somebody, then you might as well have just had them suspended the next game because they're still missing the game. As far as Sunday's concerned, I'm in the 2-0 bracket. I think we'll beat them 2-0. Our defence is so strong at the moment. We're not conceding, and that's why I'm going with a 0. And I think as Mitch said, you look at some of their defenders. We should be better, and we should be able to overrun the midfield. So let's see, 2-0, Steve.
George, Steve's got a suit on.
Your customer.
Georgie Timberlake's asking, is Steve a customer?
No.
The client of George's. Steve, the other one was you talking about that. There's a guy called CR65 just said something which backs up what you said, Steve Hasty. He's rightly pointed out that if we do play a full strength side, which Mitch and George said we should, and now I think I agree. If they do get a book and they miss the Palace game, and for me,
yeah,
I think you're right. Play your best team. Let's hope they don't get booked. Let's beat Fulham. Let's beat Palace.
Yeah,
but they won't affect the cup game.
Yeah, because you could rest them and and lose, and then you could lose the following game anyway. So far better to go for the 3 points, and it's up to those players to be professional and not get booked. And if they do, then fair enough. That's when you have a different, it's a different outcome for Eddie. But I think it's a difficult choice. But if it was West Ham, if it was the following week, that's a different kettle of fish altogether, But
Steve,
an away fixture,
the dog pounds pipping for you, mate.
John says Steve looks like Lady Chatterley's chauffeur tonight. Geordie Timberlake says Steve Hasty looks like Warren Barton. Stu says,
well, speaking of Warren,
Stu says Wallace has just left us a note on the fridge saying that this isn't working. He says, I don't know what she's talking about. The fridge is fine. Which leads us nicely into Elliot's joke of the week. A policeman knocked on my door last night. Where were you between 4 and 6? He demanded. Primary school, I replied. Thanks, Elliot.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. The food bank t-shirt from last week, which was this one. If Sven Botman pissed the bed, he'd still have a clean sheet. The winner is Chris Cooper. I will stick that up on Twitter in a minute. £20 that t-shirt went for. So thank you. That's a great donation towards the food bank.
Well done, Chris. Thank you.
We do have a new one going up this week. Now, I'm not sure if we can get this signed, but the new one going up this week is this one. Dance Like Big Dan Byrne t-shirt is going up this week. So just get your bids up. We'll hopefully get that signed off, Dan. We can't guarantee it as yet. But bear with us on that, and I'll let you know when we put that up. Okay, Julie, here it comes. Troll of the week is this one. I put rest in peace to my old pal Davy Falkus. And then I got this one. What way gat at Twe gat? I'm not sure whether that's an insult or whether that was something in foreign, wishing this person. I've got no idea. But David, you got blocked and you've made it onto Troll of the Week. So well done. Julie will be happy because I bet I could play the music. Last shout out for an event. I've just stuck this in the chat, only 30 tickets available for this. Nobby's just confirmed Thursday, the 9th of February, 2023, which isn't too long away. The Tynemouth Surf Cafe, Nobby Solano, and Evening with 30 tickets. So if you live down Tynemouth, we're obviously just started the Beardsley one last night, which was great. We've got another 2 of them, which have sold out already, ongoing over the next few weeks. But Nobby Solano is down at the Surf Cafe on the 9th of February. Great little venue. It's a great night to get yourself onto their website. You can click the link in the chat and you'll be able to go. That's it then. That 2 hours flew over. Thanks to Steve for joining us. Thanks to Mitch. Thanks to George. Thanks to Keith.
Guys.
Thanks to all the mods, as
Cheers,
always,
lads.
and thanks to everybody in the chat. Your contribution is superb. Would be lost without you. And again, over 550 watching live. We don't take that for granted.
Thanks for letting me be involved, Steve. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. So well done, lads. And I'll be watching you next
We've
week.
enjoyed you, George. You've been
100%, George.
Brilliant.
We have.
brilliant.
Aye.
Yeah.
Take care, all. How are the lads?
Cheers,
How are the lads?
Take care, everyone.